All right, let's begin with our first leg of a discussion this morning. Following the uproar about the National Assembly over reports that President BuharI paid $496 million for 12 Super Tucano fighter jets from the U.S. without its approval, the presidency has now presented documents and a letter from the U.S. government to the Senate, explaining why it made the move.
Yes, indeed. Now, the presidency says the U.S. government gave a February 2018 deadline to effect payment or wait for another 2 years to renegotiate. It said the payment was made due to exigencies and that it was done in the interest of the nation's security. The presidency refuted claims that cash was diverted or shared under the table. It further added that Section 82 of the 1999 Constitution authorized the president to withdraw money from the consolidated revenue of the Federation for the purpose of meeting expenditure necessary to carry on the services of the government of the Federation for a period not exceeding 6 months until the coming into operation of the Appropriation Act.
Now, the Senate had last week set in motion the process to impeach President BuharI over the matter. All right, we still have Dr. John, Leadership and Communication Strategist, with us in the studio. And joining us to talk on this more is a social commentator, Obani Akinwale. Nii, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to have you join us.
Same here.
Now, let me start with you, Nii. The controversy between the president and the National Assembly over this release of funds. A lot of Nigerians are still not convinced that, in as much as there is a letter from the U.S., there are evidences that go ahead, we have to do this in national interest. Even if it is 48 hours, even if it's 24 hours, one way or the other, there can still be an arrangement between, or interface between the presidency and the National Assembly.
Yeah, like I said the other time, this current crop of our National Assembly leaders are just a bunch of comedians.
That's a strong word to use.
It's very, very strong, but it's the truth. Let's go back to 2004, when the issue of sovereign wealth fund extravaganza was created by then General Obasanjo. I'm aware that up to 70% of these current National Assembly members were in the parliament. What was done? We all agree that the ECA is not yet legalized. But do we need it? Yes. The reality is that we always use our 10 hands in Nigeria to hit. Now, let's go back to after President Obasanjo. What happened during President Yar'Adua's tenure? Was there any withdrawal from accrued account? Yes. Was there any legislation? No. Was there any uproar from this corridor of National Assembly members? No. Let's come to Jonathan.
Does that make it right?
No, let's come to Jonathan.
Yeah,
let's come to Jonathan.
Yeah.
Jonathan also withdrew about $2.1 billion from this same account. National Assembly members were aware. Was anything done? No. Now, legality or illegality, is there any part of the Constitution that says federal government should bail out states?
Okay.
Is that legal?
That's another aspect.
So when you look at reality, is that I've always said it that, unfortunately for us, most members of National Assemblies are self-serving. And I always put to them that, is it legal for National Assembly to allocate for themselves? By our Constitution, RMFC are allowed to regulate in terms of salary and wages. When we in our Constitution said that honorables or members of parliament are entitled to 13.5 billion.
So obviously the question you are raising about the National Assembly is a moral question.
They are
not necessarily whether they have the constitutional rights to ask,
or not.
To ask the president, or to question why he would go ahead to withdraw from the ECA without the National Assembly's approval.
From moral right. These same National Assembly members have asked the president that the president has failed. The security chief has failed because security, which is the priority, number one priority of every government, should be what federal government should face. How do you face it? Will you agree with me that since BuharI left government, our military has been less equipped because the then government, all the government are afraid that if you over-equip the military, there's tendency for coup. So we find out that we have weakened our military system since BuharI left government. Is this government that is trying now to re-equip the military? So are the National Assembly aware of this? What is their responsibility to do? Is it that for them to enrich themselves or to ensure that we fortify security apparatus? So the reality is that it's self-serving.
Okay, Dr. Ojo, we seem to be in a fix here as to whether the National Assembly has the moral high ground to question the executive for its actions.
we should put it in perspective. Number one is that I think they have every right to question how our money is being spent by the executive. But again, because many of these people, let's cite the Senate as an example, have experience in the executive arm. Many of them are past governors. They know how executive behave. They understand executive rascality. That is why most of the times they are not comfortable when you don't transmit letters to them before you take action. Because they know the extent at which any executive, the office of the president of Nigeria is one of, if not the most powerful office in Nigeria.
In the world.
In the world.
Yeah.
In the world, so to say. But again, you continue to ask yourself. He cited some examples in the past. Obasanjo took money. I doubted whether he could have taken that money without any communication with the National Assembly.
Yeah,
because
about 17.7
yes, about
billion.
$17 million.
He used it to settle our foreign debt. You could not have done that without some input, either openly or secretly. Then he also talked about Yar'Adua. Yar'Adua took money to fix electricity. But where's the electricity today? The man declared state of emergency in the electricity sector, but we never got the result. Jonathan took money to equip the military. But as we speak, we know how the PDP slashed the money. So if you look at our experience, you know I said it the other time, there are three things that form the way we react to issue. Number one is our experience. If you look at the experiences we've had with our former leaders, then you will say the National Assembly have the right to stand on the neck of the president for him to explain. Because at the end of the day,
in all of this now, it seemed like it is the way the presidency approached the National Assembly. Because if you look at former President Obasanjo, Yar'Adua, and Jonathan, that both of you cited, there was no uproar from the National Assembly, which means it's possible there was an interface, there was an understanding
They
between...
were in tandem.
They were in
more or
tandem.
less.
And also seeing it from the perspective that the party in power that time was also the majority party, and it's the same thing now. So is it the style of the president of not knowing how to interface with the National Assembly?
You see, the failure, whatever failure of APC will not be the problem of any outsider. It will be the problem of APC itself. Why do we have leadership in the National Assembly? It is very simple. Apart from organizing the National Assembly and all that, it's for them to continue to have interface with the presidency and the executive. On this case, if the executive and the leadership of the National Assembly had it good from the beginning, at least reasonably, we are not saying that they should be taking directives from the executive, but if they had a good interface, it's the simple communication that will have existed between them at that level, not necessarily involving all the members of the legislature. And the uproar we are having today, we will not have had it.
Well, let's even put it on record. Saraki did confirm that there was some kind of verbal communication from the president to the National Assembly. But at the time of disbursement or withdrawal and disbursement of the money, there was no recourse to the National Assembly. You cited what the presidency has also cited, that look, it's not the first time this is happening, from Obasanjo to Yar'Adua to GEJ, Goodluck Jonathan. It's been done in the past. But the question is, the fact that it's been done in the past, does it justify the same, tendency to want to toe the same line? This is a government that said, look, we're going to do things differently. It's a government of change.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think one of the cardinal responsibility of the National Assembly is to formulate laws and policies that will ensure we run the country effectively. The question we need to ask ourselves is that, do we deserve these current National Assembly members? And it's absolutely no. The question is excess crude account legal? We all know that there is no part of our constitution that created, what we have is consolidated revenue account.
That's what the constitution recognizes.
Not excess crude account. So the reality is that if since 2004, we still have about 7% of these guys in the red and the green chamber, and we have not formulated any law for over 14 years to legalize whatever comes as excess in our own that we want to save for raining day, is not legalized. So why are we shouting? For me, federal government is not taking money from anywhere, because where they are taking that money is not known to the law. That's the reality. Somebody created that, if there is this,
so it seems there's
just
no
money
justification from the
exactly.
National Assembly to say...
To raise any outcry, because the reality is that what are they going to query the federal government on? Is it what they have legalized on? Or what is legitimate? The question is that what the Constitution says is that the president has right to do X, Y, Z, so number of days before the Appropriation Act is passed. So the reality is that whatever government money is spending at the moment is from the CRA.
Does it also include the so-called anticipatory approval, which was...
See, one thing I like about this APC government is that APC government is good with semantics, English, anticipatory, technical, and all those things. The reality is that the buck stops on President Buhari's desk. Reality is that when this government started, President Buhari was a bit less fair when it comes to National Assembly affairs. And the reality is that the National Assembly has been running stuffs. So in order to look democratic, we all know what kind of what President exhumes. You remember when this president emerges, Vice President asks for 90 days executive order there about that. They want to do some things, but the Constitution will not allow them to do it. And these are the things they want to do. See, what the National Assembly is this just tay-a-tay. Saraki has crime case, drop it. Dogara is not going to contest in Bauchi, has problem with the governor of Bauchi. Go there and let them know that we are in charge. That is the reality. They want this government to come on table and do part. They are not asking for the money, we know that, because they are very careful when it comes to money exchange with this government. But the question is that they want to be seen to be in charge. And don't forget that 4 years in Nigeria is just like a promotional exam. So they are preparing for the exams. The executive has perceived by them to have goofed. Meanwhile, they have goofed for the past 14 years, unable to provide law. This same National Assembly fails to provide for a budget since November. And they have the effrontery to come out and said, perhaps when there's an epidemic in the country and federal government decided to go to the pool and spend money on those epidemics, for example, there is a landslide or whatever, what have you, are they going to say, oh, why did you spend this money? So the reality is that why is the National Assembly not asking government when he was paying 1.7, when I calculated the $496 million, it's about 178 billion naira. And this same government released 1.7 trillion naira for the state for bailout. The National Assembly was not raising eye dust.
So this amount is nothing compared to what states have
if it's going to save, and reality is that they said this money is intergovernment. It's not that you are using Orisaja for line or whatever to pass the money to abroad.
Doctor, let me come to you on this. One expects that being the ruling party of the day in government and also having majority at the National Assembly would have created a platform where there shouldn't have been friction between the National Assembly and the executive. But it's not just on this issue. There has been constant friction between the both sides and all of that.
Almost from day one.
From day one.
I'd say.
Are we still seeing the hands of former ACN, CPC, New PDP, and AMPP, all that came to form the APC? Are we still seeing...
I thought you were going to say the hands of Jacob and
it depends on what context you want to see it.
Yeah.
But are we seeing all of these elements still playing out within the larger APC?
I think it's going to be unfair on anybody to continue to blame people, the entire sectors in the APC, especially the National Assembly. If I'm going to join your political party as a person, I am going to have, you are supposed to ask me, what are you bringing to the table? Okay, I'm bringing my state. At the end of the day, what should be the benefit of the people of my state? Everybody that came to join APC came with a different ideology and agenda. If you are not satisfying my own agenda, then will you blame me if at any point in time I decide to pull out? And that's exactly what has happened. I think APC in the process of formation was too hasty. And the focus was, how we're going to dislodge Jonathan. And they didn't get the ideology so correctly. I think that's where the problem started from. But beyond that, because all these things are very sad, either we say the National Assembly is the problem or the president is the problem, at the end of the day, these people will earn their salary. And the grassy masses will continue to suffer. Like he made mention of the budget, for example. In a nation being ruled by a political party that has majority in the National Assembly, I was not expecting that the budget will be lying somewhere without attention. But again, the problem is not also with the National Assembly. If you study, I don't know whether you have studied the budget as drafted. We have cases of copy and paste of the former budget that the executive just lifted from the former budget and paid, including the budget of the president. And you remember that it got to a time after the meeting between the leadership of the National Assembly and the president that they said, okay, these people are not coming to defend their budget. Because civil servants have seemingly taken over the budget process, that they just insert some clauses, they just put money there because that's the only avenue to steal money. The failure of APC will not
in
be
spite
the
of the
failure.
fact that this administration has prided itself with plugging the many loopholes
That is the,
that lead to waste and corruption in
once
government.
you have a budget provision for anything, then it becomes easier for you to steal the money. Once you have budget provision.
Exactly.
So the failure of APC should not be blamed on the National Assembly. The failure of APC is the failure of all members of APC. Either you are at the National Assembly, or you are in the presidency, you are in the executive, or any arm of government that you are. What I'm saying in essence is that from the beginning, the executive has failed in the responsibility of actually making sure that apart from the fact that maybe you have some people that you are not expected to be in leadership position, they are failed in the responsibility of making sure that the National Assembly, to a reasonable extent, works in tandem with the manifesto of the political party.
So
And what do I mean?
neither the executive or the legislature have been able to, find out exactly, draw a line between what is in the national interest and what is the personal interest. The executive, the presidency has said, look, we needed to withdraw this money based on the fact that the U.S. had given us,
A deadline.
a deadline of February 20, and they actually, displayed the
Mr.
letter to the National Assembly, first off. But is this really in the national interest, especially when you want to look at the eventual outcomes of this at the end of the day, the kind of optics we're sending out there?
See, let me begin by telling you
Yeah.
that the issue of security should not have brought this unnecessary politics if we have done what we're supposed to do. In fact, people like us are not even supposed to know how these things work. If ordinarily we
Just give us results.
prioritize the interests of the society above whatever political interests we have. But because of the fact that there's already a disconnect and everybody is looking for a loophole through which they can hold the other person responsible, that's what led to this. The National Assembly, for example, is looking for an opportunity to hold the executive by the jugular. And the executive is looking for all avenue to hold the National Assembly responsible.
Okay, so the presidency has said, look, this is not by any means an attempt to undermine the National Assembly. This was in the national interest. From all of these that happened, would you say that really, truly this was in the national interest?
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm not going to toe the line of my colleague here. And
Okay.
I don't think we have any political system in Nigeria, either we call it APC or PDP. What we probably have over time is individual interest. People just look for, because our constitution has not allowed people to run as independent candidates. So people look for a platform that they could go in and become member of the parliament. And you agree with me that even from 2007 till date, what you have at the National Assembly, they are not political parties, they are individual interests.
So how can we even begin to change that
so
narrative?
it's a problem. So when you said either APC or PDP, we have in other parts of the world, even US, recently they have issues that there was a stalemate. They sat down, Democrats, and they have different ideologies. But what is paramount is the interest of the citizen. And you ask me, our National Assembly, call it APC, PDP, or what have you, do they have national interest at that? No. Any country that have national interest at that, whether the executive inserted unclaimed expenses in the budget or what have you, Appropriation Act is what gives life to any government. I'm looking at a situation whereby the Appropriation Act will capture that if the National Assembly did not approve the budget before the January 1 of every year, all of us will not collect salary. You know, because their salaries are not tied to this Appropriation Act. Their salary, for example, if you see when Saraki was going to one of the National Assembly members' house, you see the number of security apparatus going with him. Do I have that number of security apparatus? I don't. So the reality is that they don't have national interest at all. It is not a political party thing. It is not. Neither APC
But
nor
wouldn't
PDP.
that be seen as the privileges that go with the office? of the day, whoever is not about the individual, but that office.
The office.
Wouldn't
It's
have
not,
the
that's why, you know,
privileges
you
that
remember the last time I
go
came,
on.
I said, this system is not working for us. It is not. In those days, if you have, in my town, I have community leaders, I have sub-community leaders. If we need to take any decision, sub goes to the one and go to the final authority and we make decisions. In this time around, it doesn't matter whether our committee want this benefit. Once I know that I'm fighting with him, and you are supposed to give us something, I will make sure that both of us will sabotage you. That's exactly what's happening in this country. When Jonathan was the president, Amechi stood against him for this CCA account.
Yeah.
Amechi is the minister for transportation now. Are we hearing any news again? Oshio Omole and co stand tall with Okojo Oweala. That why do you want to save for us when we need this money? So it is not a party team. These are PDP guys. And this is APC. So it is individual. So these people always have their personal interest. And it's unfortunate that Nigerians were, like you said, the masses are the ones suffering it. What is the way forward?
What is the way forward?
Exactly.
Very good
That's
question.
a big one.
Yeah.
But let's look into the ideal here.
Yeah.
We know that when it comes to paperwork,
Yeah.
it can take some time.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
Now the presidency received a letter
Yeah.
from the
US
US saying you have a
XYZ.
deadline of
Yeah.
blah blah blah, as the
Yeah.
case may be.
Yeah.
In that kind of window,
Okay.
where the concept of transmitting a letter to the National Assembly to get the approval, you know, and all of that will take days, and then the deadline would elapse. What should have been the ideal way of handling that window?
So if I'm in President BuharI's situation, I will do that over and over. This same National Assembly told the executive that if they fail to remove Mago, some appointee will not be passed. This same National Assembly has been having standoff with the presidency that if you don't do X, Y, Z, we will not do this. In a situation whereby the National Assembly is putting box on the presidency's table that this country is not secure, the economy is going bad, and yet you are standing up. You remember that just about a month ago that they approved the NPC member committee, deputy governor of CBN and some other committee members. These are the things that will hold the engine of the country. And yet, you and I know that this National Assembly, when Kaduna State sent a letter to National Assembly that they want to request for $350 million World Bank loan, when was the letter at the floor of National Assembly? This same National Assembly that because one member was jumping from the vehicle, decided to leave the national work and go and be looking for a senator in the hospital. There is no serious government that will wait for this kind of National Assembly and will not do what is needful. The reality is this. Do we need this? What we were supposed to ask is this. Do we need this to Kano jets? Yes.
Yeah.
Did the money leave our purse? Yes. Is it true one of our pastors jet or true intergovernment agency? It is true intergovernment agency. How much left the confines of Nigeria? 498 million USD. Where did the money go to? This is it. That is the job of national when it comes to check and balances, find out whether these are done. Then again, don't forget that the Constitution gave the presidency right to spend at least 6 months, about quarter of the budget before the appropriation. So the presidency also has rights. Because we have laid the budget for them since November or thereabout, and this is June, 6 months. They have not passed. I need to move on with my security. I feel like so I can spend the money.
Okay, Dr. John, is it comforting that this letter came from, that the president has presented the letter from Donald Trump? Should that give some satisfaction to the National Assembly, especially when Donald Trump says, we have received this money, you're going to get the Tucano aircraft as soon. It's a company that said in 2020.
Yes.
And Donald Trump says as soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
Who is
manufacturing?
The whole idea,
who is manufacturing the aircraft?
Okay, and if we say, look, this is an emergency, we need to fight Boko Haram and all the insecurity challenges to a standstill. And we hear from the company involved that you'll get this equipment by at the end of 2020. And we say there's a deadline letter of February 20, saying that, look, if you don't pay up, you will not get anything until 2 years.
Which also amounts to 2020.
Which is still the same 2020.
But they've gotten their alerts, that's the issue. They've gotten their alerts, so that's it.
I think majorly, I want to start from the angle of the president. When you became the president, you appointed a senior special assistant on National Assembly matters. 2 of them. one to interface with the senators and the other with the House of Representatives. What is their job? If ordinarily you think you want to be president and you want to do things your own way, you do not need these guys. So if I were the president, I will not told the past of executive rascality that is known for the past president. What I will have done,
them as instance.
what I will have done is as simple as I am going to engage the National Assembly, at least through the man that I have appointed. But if the president had done that, by now, the National Assembly will not have the mouth to come out and say, we are questioning the president. Because a man who is living in Borno, for example, or a man who is living in Benue, is not interested in the process. He just wants this thing fixed. He doesn't want any National Assembly to delay anything. But again, as a people, we must learn as fathers. The president is the father of the nation. We must learn to do things right. If you have appointed somebody to interface between you, that window, I am not going to act like Engineer Nii will act and say, oh, I'm the president, I'm just going to buy. I am going to first take step and interface. I know what I would do.
That's what fathers do. When,
yes.
When you say he's the father of the,
I know
I
would do.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to pay.
A father will just come up and decide, look, this is what I want for my family, and it's not going to have a discussion.
I want to differ on that. Even as a father, if you know that certain action you take because you know has to be autocratic because you know your children will go wayward. How long was the ministerial list transmitted to the National Assembly? When was it responded to? How long? I'm coming.
This government came on board and said they were looking for cents.
I'm coming. Let me finish. How long was Magu named with the National Assembly? How long is the list for the CBN governor in the National Assembly? How long are the members of FIRS in the National Assembly? How long does it take to confirm the DG of National Tourism Board? The question is this. This National Assembly, whatever will not serve them, they will not act on it. We all know that. And as a father, you don't say, okay, let's for example, your daughter or your son sustain wound. And you know that normally it's supposed to put maybe penicillin or what have you to treat it, or iodine or thereabout. And the daughter refused to do it, and I said, as a father, I will talk to him. You have to treat this wound. Or you wait until tetanus enter that wound. What do you do as a father? You carry the child, take him to hospital, get them treat that wound so that he can get healing very fast. Another father like my colleague can say, oh, don't worry, it's my daughter. I'll put Vaseline today. That thing will continue because I don't want him to feel odd. I don't want him to see me as an autocratic father. I don't want to see him that I'm not pampering him. That is what he's asking for.
We have to round off now as we ground to a halt before the news update. But the point there is, you have continually said that the National Assembly is serving. But the point there is, if we go back to there was a question Ngozi asked earlier on. Okay. Obasanjo, Yaradua, and Jonathan did the same thing. Yes. And there was no uproar anywhere. And the issues were also not settled. Does that mean that the presidency should toe the same line, even though it was not constitutional, it was not right, so they should do it because the National Assembly is self-serving?
No, presidency has not done it that is not constitutionally right. Where they took the money from is not in our constitution. And National Assembly cannot legislate on what is not in our constitution. So what has it done? So I keep telling you, the ECA account is not known to our law.
Yeah, but the point there is, let me read briefly section 80 of the Constitution. Okay. All revenues or other monies raised or received by the Federation, not being revenues or other monies payable under this Constitution or any act of the National Assembly into any other public fund of the Federation established for a specific purpose, shall be paid into and form one consolidated revenue fund of the Federation. No money shall be withdrawn from the consolidated blah, 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 except to meet expenditure that is charged upon the fund by this Constitution, or where the issue of those money is being authorized by an appropriation act, supplementary act or an act passed in pursuance of Section 81 of this Constitution. Yes. Now, the point there is also talking about any other funds, any other public funds.
Paid into consolidated revenue.
Yeah.
So if consolidated revenue is not ECA.
Is it just a question of semantics?
It's not ECA.
Anybody can get there and
take the consolidated revenue is not.
It's what we share at the end of every month between the three tiers of government. ECA is not shared by the. Yes.
Yeah, but the ECA is still a public fund. Okay. It is a public fund owned by Nigerians.
Paid into
owned
where?
By. It has not been paid into.
That's what I'm saying.
I agree with you that
the ECA is not yet. It's not yet.
Yeah, but Yeah.
the ECA
So-
is not
But,
in the
but
constitution.
the,
The
but the
president will walk
fund in
there,
it,
take
but the
the
fund in
money.
it is still a public fund.
I agree.
Uh-huh.
What I'm saying is that it's a public fund, but the Constitution of Nigeria never recognized anything that is called ECA. So the
Yeah,
National
but
Assembly,
there's
I'm
such
coming,
a-
I'm
there's
coming.
such a
The money
thing
I'm
as-
coming,
there's
I'm coming,
such a
I'm
thing
coming.
as
ECA does
convention.
I'm coming, I'm
Out
coming.
there.
The ECA until the National Assembly will only work on our Constitution, on what Constitution mentions. So it's not, is there anything not in line with this Constitution should be rendered null and void?
But
So
there must have been
ECA
some kind of
is never
agreement.
mentioned
All
in our
right.
Constitution.
Lee
have to-
and Dotun, there must have been some kind of agreement that this ECA should be set aside.
With which Constitution?
For what?
With which act? There is no
All right,
act
all right. We have
determining
to
how
leave it
ECA
here.
is being
We have to
spent.
leave it here,
or-
gentlemen. Dr. John, thank you so much for coming on the program. Obaniya Akinwale, thank you so much for coming on the program. Thank you so much.